Hello, Limitless Living fam. Welcome back to the pod. Today we've got life and empowerment coach Libby with us. Libby, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. For you guys who are listening, we actually did an episode on my podcast first, and it was so much fun. So Carrie invited me to come on here, and I'm just so excited.
Yeah, we had a great conversation, and I'm definitely going to link your show in the show notes. People can go check it out along with your other awesome episodes. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today as well. So,
Yes.
Libby, why don't you start by sharing? You specialize, like as a coach, you're a life and empowerment coach. And so, what stands out to me and most people, as it should, is that you focus on empowerment. So, I would love to hear what about your journey led you to choosing empowerment as your main dish.
So I started really, really young in the self-development community. I graduated high school and moved out of my mom's house at 16. And I had a really strong pull to be a business owner. I always had that, I guess, like I said, pull or interest, and it just intrigued me. And I grew up around entrepreneurs, and I was always, even in school and throughout my life, like I was the person that my friends would come to for advice. I was the person that, people were always asking me, Libby, what should I do? And I loved it. I really thrived in it. I loved giving advice to my friends. I loved supporting them. I loved making them feel empowered, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And so when I graduated, I started a self-love blog at 16 because it was something that I loved to speak on, and it really just lit me up. And I loved writing also. So I started my blog, and that was kind of the very first step of me becoming an entrepreneur. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I still didn't quite know the direction that I was going. I just knew that I had this blog, and I created it on Wix in like one day, and I threw it up. I threw up my first post, and I started posting just like, I think I created a highlight on Instagram that was just motivational quotes, and I would post stuff on my story and just put them in this highlight. And that was like the very beginning of me stepping into being a coach and starting this journey. And I got into tarot reading, and that also, I loved doing it for a while. And I did tarot reading. I did tarot readings for like friends and acquaintances. I lived on a farm with my cousin, and there was like this old trailer in the back of the property, and I'd have people come over, and I decked it out. I cleaned it out, and I put a bunch of crystals and stuff everywhere. And I'd have all of my friends and like acquaintances and just word of mouth come to this old crappy trailer on a farm, and I'd give them tarot readings.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really loved it. And so that was fun for a while. And I kind of just did that on the side as I was working two jobs. And I still had that tone of empowerment. Like I still had that underlying skill of knowing how to make women feel good about themselves, knowing how to say the right words to inspire and to motivate. And I really recognized that. And I saw it as a skill, and I wanted to nurture it. And so I started evolving out of doing tarot readings and more into courses and teachings and things like that. And then I started beta testing coaching, and this was like a few years past, and I still was on the notion of self-love at that point. And the the reason I evolved from self-love to self-empowerment is because self-love for me, and for I feel like for a lot of people, isn't very tangible. It's not very graspable. Like people hear self-love and they're like, okay, so what? Like I still struggle with this. I still struggle with this. Like looking at myself in a mirror and telling myself that I love me doesn't do that much, right? In the long run of things. It's for sure helpful, but it doesn't make the big difference. And that's when I really stepped into empowerment, because I wanted to go deeper. I was like, what's tangible? What can people grasp? What can people understand that will also trickle into self-love? And I landed with self-empowerment, because to feel confident in the decisions that you make is a version of self-love. To feel resilient in overcoming obstacles and finding solutions and being solution oriented is a form of self-love. And when it's graspable and it's tangible like that, people start to love themselves without even recognizing it when they step into their power. So that's kind of how, full circle, how I landed here.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that is really interesting. The differentiation between self-love and self-empowerment, and how putting the empowerment first can
Mhm.
really naturally support the
Mhm.
self-love. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So tell me for you, because I know as coaches, something that we know is that everyone has different definitions. Like no matter what the dictionary definition is of something,
Right.
we all think of things differently
Right.
given our lived experiences. So tell me, how do you see and define empowerment?
Hmm. The number one thing that I feel like resonates with me and what I teach when it comes to empowerment is honestly just feeling and trusting and feeling confident in your ability to make decisions for yourself and trusting yourself and that ability to make smart decisions and aligned decisions without worrying about what everyone else is doing or what you're supposed to be doing or what you should be doing. And that really comes from building that sense of self trust. And we build that self trust by making promises to ourselves and keeping them, and making promises that feel aligned and making promises that really make us feel empowered, make us feel good about ourselves, and making those decisions and keeping those promises that we make to ourselves. You get to a point of self-trust where nothing can stop you. You're like, well, I know that I can make smart decisions, and every decision that I make, whether I fail or not, I learn an important lesson and I trust myself.
Yeah. And that is especially for entrepreneurs and anyone just wanting to go against the grain in any way. That is the skill of all skills to have,
Right.
right? To
Right.
trust yourself enough to do what you know is right for you when
Mhm.
other people would disagree. So
Right.
I'm curious, in your journey, like what has an experience been where like you've been challenged in that and you've had to deepen your your sense of empowerment and really, really trust yourself?
Yeah. So let me think. After I graduated high school, I worked at a school and I did the tarot readings, and my life was just kind of up in the air. Like I didn't really have, well, in my eyes, I had a direction, but in other people's eyes, I was kind of just floating. Like I was just, doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't working a whole ton. My rent was super cheap. So I worked part time, and I didn't have a ton of money, but I loved my life. Like the rest of my time, I went camping and I went hiking, and I had such an adventurous life, and people really didn't understand that I didn't care about having money at that point. I really did not care. I was like, you know what? I'm having so much more fun not working than when I was working and have had money that doesn't matter to me. Like it's fine. Yeah. So um I was going through that transition, and at one point, I think I was like 19 at this time, and my dad sat me down and he was like, Lib, you're not going anywhere, essentially. Like you have no direction. And I know he was said this and came to this conclusion with the best intentions. Like he really just wanted me to excel in something and learn a new skill. But he sat me down and he was like, either you have to choose to start to go to college or join the military. And he was like, come with me with your decision within a week. And so I went home and I just sobbed that night. I was like, that is not, neither of those options are what I want to do. Like I was living such this adventurous and free life. The last thing I wanted to do was join the military or go to college. I was like, this absolutely not. But, he was my dad and he had a lot of influence over my life at that time. So I made a decision. I didn't see any other option and I started college. I signed up for college for entrepreneurship, and I was paying all out of pocket. I didn't get any help because my parents make too much money. So I was paying like $600 a month or something like that to go to college part time. And I remember I was in my entrepreneurship class and I was sitting there and we were watching a Netflix documentary in this college class that I was paying $600 a month to be there. And I was staring at the board and I was like, I can't do this. Like, this isn't, I literally cannot do this. In my head, too, like I worked it up. I was trying to have the best attitude. I was doing so well. I was showing up and doing the homework and putting in the work because in my head, I was like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to get the most out of it I can. But it got to a point where I just wasn't getting anything out of it. It's like, this is not worth it. This is not worth the time. This isn't worth the money. This isn't worth the energy. I'm not doing what I want to be doing. So I remember I called my dad that day and I was like, Dad, I'm sorry, but this isn't for me. I can't, I'm not going to college. At the end of the day, this is my life. You don't get to choose what I do and the decisions that I make. And I know what I want to do. And I know that you don't fully believe or align or I guess agree with the path that I want to take, but that's what I want to do. And he was honestly really open and really kind. And he was like, you're right. Like, you're an adult. And he took it really well. But it took every ounce of courage in me to make that phone call to my dad and say, I'm not going to college. So that day I got on my laptop and I dropped out. And the funniest coincidence was the day that I decided to drop out was the last day to get a full refund. So I got a full refund for what I had paid, and that ended that chapter. It was done.
We love that. So good.
Yeah.
So good. I'm definitely hearing that you have a strong sense of intuition. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I relate to you in that for me it's always been a little bit more natural and require a little bit less effort than maybe what some people experience to tune into that and then follow it. Because for me,
Mhm.
and it sounds like it's the same for you, it's a physical sensation and it actually becomes physically painful to
Mhm.
go against it. And I can
Right.
name so many experiences like that in my life where I didn't really realize it at the time, but I've learned, that just like my yes intuition feels a certain way in my body, so does the no intuition, and it does become painful.
Mhm.
So for you, what would you say, if anything, like if you have practices, habits, or anything at all that allows you to really tune in to that
Mhm.
intuition? What would you say those are?
I would say getting really good with shutting out the noise. And I know it's hard, especially with social media and, the world being at our fingertips. And I went through a phase like when I was really going full force, like diving headfirst into my business and investing money, like big amounts of money, and investing time and things like that. It was it was really hard. And I went through this phase of I had followed like a bunch of accounts that essentially call out online coaches and are like pretty negative. Like, these accounts are pretty negative, but in my head at the time, I wanted to follow them because I was so wanting to be ethical. I was so wanting to be on the side of coaching. And I was like, if I can expose myself to this content, if I can expose myself to, contrasting opinions, which I do think is important, then I can become a more ethical and well-rounded coach. And to a point, I do agree. But at the end of the day, these accounts were hurting me a lot more than they were helping me. They were shutting down literally everything that I had dreamed about doing. And it was really hard. Like, it was a hard place to be in. And I reached out to a friend that I have on social media, and I just asked her opinion. And she was like, you know what? Like, no one's telling you that you have to follow these accounts. No one's telling you that you have to do this. Like, who's sitting here and telling you that you're unethical except you? Who's sitting here and telling you that you're not serving people except you? You're your own worst enemy. And I was like, you're right. So that day I unfollowed all of those accounts that were bringing me down and really affecting me mentally. And I was like, at the end of the day, I know when I'm in integrity with myself. I know when I'm doing something that's ethical or when something is unethical. And I can trust myself to know if I'm serving someone or if I'm not serving someone or if I'm screwing them over or not, which I would never do, right? Those are never have been my intentions. So why am I so worried about screwing someone over when I'm not even doing it? And I really had to learn and practice to shut out the noise and to get off my phone and to disconnect and prioritize it a ton. Because if you get caught up in what you should be doing and what you need to be doing, nothing else will paralyze you more than getting caught in that trap, getting caught in that loop.
I could not agree more. Could not agree more. And I have a similar story, like in parallel to that. It sounds like
Mhm.
we've kind of experienced the same thing in slightly different ways. And it's funny how, like, immediately when you said shutting out the noise, my mind went to social media.
Mhm.
Because that's where we get it these days.
Mhm.
And it's so, I mean, it's programmed to be addictive to the human mind. And there's nothing wrong with us for becoming addicted, even to the negative stuff, more so to the
Right.
negative stuff that makes us
Right.
question ourselves, compare ourselves, all the things. And so my version of that is, and I think we might have talked about this a little bit in our last conversation, but and I just made a post in my story today, and I've decided it's something that I do want to start speaking about boldly because I really, it's very close to my heart.
Mhm.
The narrative and the incessant posts of how I made 50K last month or how I made $1 million my first year in business. And it makes me like,
Yeah.
I consumed that narrative and not only, invested in the blueprint to a certain
Mhm.
amount of money, right? Because I have all of this, I don't want to say necessarily money trauma, but I definitely, a lot of my conditioning led to like, I'm not worthy or successful if I
Mhm.
am not being able to give myself all the physical things that I want with money. And
Mhm.
at this point in my journey, the short term money is not in alignment. I need to be working on my long term, big picture vision, which is,
Mhm.
the return is down the line more so. And so for at least a solid year, I was consuming this and it was like poison to me. And it
Mhm.
was making me feel so small and like such a failure that I was not there with everybody else. Like something was wrong with me. And finally, and it was only a couple months ago, I was like, I have to lay this down. Essentially, like I have to lay the chase for the money down
Right.
along with all of those narratives and all of that I'm consuming. And I kid you not, since I have made that shift, I have like almost instantaneously gotten everything that I wanted, not in a superficial sense, but in all the feelings that I've been seeking, like the joy, the confidence, the fulfillment, the contentment, and also the material things have found their way to me. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is poisonous out there. And similar to what you're saying about like coaches who are just spitting negativity to lift themselves up and push others down, it
Mhm.
is so toxic for our own divine path and our creativity.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, like I said, it's like the number one paralyzer is when you get caught up and so worried about what other people are doing and how they're becoming successful. And I created a post about this too, like a couple weeks ago. It was something like, I said, no one really cares about your product, your service, your package, your membership, whatever it is that you're offering. No one cares about what it is. They care about you, specifically you. And so if you are copying and pasting someone else's strategy, if you're copying and pasting someone else's ideas of success, and this is another thing, people get so wrapped up in someone else's success that they think that's what's going to make them happy, especially on social media, right? Like for a long time, I've thought that I wanted like a super big business and the nice house and to live in California, all the things that a lot of people deem as successful. And for them, that may be, but I had to get really honest with myself. And I really had to start identifying what does success look like for me? Because again, it's subjective. It's different for everyone. And I really came to the fact that I don't want a huge multi-million dollar business. I genuinely don't. Like that is not in my I don't want that responsibility. I don't want a huge mansion. I don't want like all of these superficial things that social media was convincing me that I wanted. And I had to get really honest with myself. And I was like, success for me is having a small house on a big property and having a lot of babies. Like, I want to be a mom in the future. I want to be at home. I want to be present. I want to feel like I have a life outside of my business and outside of social media. And like I said, for some people that looks different. And for some people, success is the big materialistic things, and that's fine. But I hear so many entrepreneurs now saying, I have all the things, I have the business, I have this, I have that, and I'm still unfulfilled. And it's like, okay, well, is the success in quotations that you're living right now the success that you actually wanted, or were you working towards something that someone else had?
That is such a good question. It's so like confronting, which it
Yeah,
should be,
right.
because we need to check ourselves. I've like rewritten my definition of success so many times
Yeah.
because I've evolved so
Mm-hmm.
much and it changes. And to really let yourself do that and accept like what success means to you is such a power move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And that's just another huge part, I feel like, of again stepping into your power, making confident decisions, making decisions that are in alignment with what you truly want, not with what other people are living or wanting or saying that is going to make you happy or saying that's going to make you feel all these things. Only you, like I said, you are the only person that knows what makes you feel good. No one else can tell you.
No, and it's no one else's job to make sure you're feeling good and enjoying your life. And nobody else will
Yeah,
do it for you because people can't even do it for themselves.
right.
Right. So like that is our job. Let's take ownership of that and have fun with it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get to choose a path that is, yes, hard, but it can also be fun. I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
season where I've really learned the difference between stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing something that feels like dread,
Mm-hmm.
and stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something hard that is also fun and
Yeah,
enjoyable and still
right.
fulfilling. And we can choose that
Mhm,
every time. We don't have to do anything that we dread. We can get to like set it aside and choose the things that are fun. And
mhm.
that brings me to like the last thing I wanted to chat with you about, which is when we're doing that and we're making the choices that are really serving our version of success and joy, sometimes I do go against the grain. And I think one of the biggest things that I see with clients when they're really stepping out and deciding if they're going to go for those things they really want to go for is fear
Mhm,
of judgment. And I
mhm.
think that's really intertwined with the idea of empowerment. And so I would be curious just to hear your thoughts about those two things together.
Yeah, yeah. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think of fear of judgment is a lack of self-trust. Because the only reason that you would be so worried, so concerned, so like stepping on eggshells type of energy is if you didn't fully trust in, like I said, stepping into that power, stepping into that trust yourself in the decisions that you're making. And that's when we don't trust ourselves, that's when we look to other people to find that validation. When we can't find that validation within ourselves, then we look at other people and we're like, okay, well, what are you doing? What are you doing that feels good? What are you doing that is helping with this? And I don't think it's wrong to draw inspiration from other people, for sure. I think it can be really beautiful, but we also have to have such strong discernment, especially in the social media world. We have to be able to say, okay, well, this person is trying this. I'm going to test that modality. I'm going to test that path. I'm going to test, that way of thinking or that way of acting or that, way of eating, exercising, whatever it may be. I'm going to test it. And if it feels good for me and if it works for me, then great, I'm going to roll with it. But if it doesn't feel good for you and it doesn't work for you, who's to say that that's the only way? Who's to say that that's the only option? There are a million, trillion, infinity amount of other possibilities and paths and modalities and things for you to choose from. And so, why are you limiting yourself? Why can't we choose something different?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that is so perfectly said. We always have like infinite options and possibility in front of us. We don't have to do the thing that sucks.
Right.
Just because it works for someone else. I mean, and that goes for everything in life. I was actually, it's
Mm.
so funny. I was having a conversation with one of my good friends this morning, And something that I have been doing, I'm really big on finding a safe space to fail when you're getting uncomfortable. And so
Mm.
booking more speaking engagements and live workshops is something that's like my biggest goal of 2024. And so I said, okay, let me find a safe space to fail. And I signed up for a Toastmasters club to get comfortable speaking. It's like a public speaking club. And I was really excited about it at first. And then I started to realize that the environment of this place is the polar opposite of who I am as a person. So like I am like warmth and bubbly and connection. I'm very like deep and intimate. I'm flow. I'm like colorful, music, all these things. And every single thing about this club is the opposite. It's in like a stinky basement and it's cold and everyone's super awkward and there's no connection, play, creativity, fun. It's just really dry and rigid. And I was like really battling with this. And I'm like, I don't want to like quit. I don't want to like be a quitter, because I'm a very determined person. I want to get better at this thing. And my friend was like, yo, let's not make this deeper than it is. If a child tries a strawberry smoothie and is like, ew, that's gross. I don't like that. They're not to get their nutrients, they're not going to force themselves to keep drinking a strawberry smoothie. They're just going to drink a blueberry one instead
Right.
and not make it more than that. She's like, you tried something, you don't like it, it's not right for you. That's not the only way to do this. There are a million other ways to do it. And that's a conversation I had today. And so it's like rinsing and repeating that same thing over and over and not tying yourself to a certain way of doing it just for whatever reason, whether it be you watching someone else do it or just like this idea in your head that it needs to be like that, like giving yourself the power of choice
Yeah.
always.
Right. And again, that I feel like that circles, like full circles back to empowerment and finding that trust within yourself again to say, you know what? I don't care. Like, it's fine. I'm going to leave. Like, this isn't what I want to be doing. This isn't in alignment with the people that I want to be reaching. This isn't in alignment with the community that I want to be speaking to. I'm done. And who's like, I feel like people always pretend that there's some big bad guy in the sky that's going to shame you for making these decisions. And it's like, no, it's yourself. You're the only one.
Yes. Oh
No
my God.
one.
Thank you for saying that. That is so true. Like, you know, and it's funny as I'm like thinking through what you just said. It's likely that maybe someone in the past has shamed you for something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's important to recognize that and to also recognize that right now in this moment today, no one's going to do that except for you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, power of choice. Are we going to shame ourselves or are we going to celebrate the power that we hold and like our ability to just know what's right for us and be the only one who can know what's right for us?
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite mantras to say along those lines is self shame causes paralysis while self compassion creates motivation. And I don't like, I live by that so often because I mean, we can use a kid example too, because I worked in the childcare industry for a long time. So I love using kids for examples. But when let's say you have a kid on trying to do the monkey bars and they're on the other end and you're on the other side and you're cheering them on, right? You're saying, let's go, you can do this, you're so strong, like you're so brave, you got this. How much more likely do you think they are to try to cross those monkey bars? But if you're on the other side calling them a loser, saying that they're weak, there's no way you can do it, shaming them, they're going to drop off and say, no, I'm done, I don't want to do this. Like, and we do that to ourselves all of the time. Like, you wake up late, oh, I'm so lazy, I woke up late today, I can't believe that I slept in. What if you had compassion for yourself? What if you flipped the script and said, I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to sleep in today. I'm so grateful that I got to give my body some extra rest this morning, and I'm going to start, my morning by doing something that makes me feel good. Like, how much more motivated would you be to take action on the things that you truly desire if you had the attitude of self-compassion rather than self-shame?
That is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Such an important topic to share and to lean in on and just to really like keep in your front pocket, not even your back pocket, but your front, because we all, it is human to like just battle shame all
Mm-hmm.
the time. And it's not, we don't need it to be productive. And that's something that I see so much, like not just with clients and stuff, but with my loved ones, my friends, and like even my husband. There's so much I can only achieve and be productive if I'm like guilting or shaming or pushing myself into it. And just like you said, how much more energy and how much more motivating would it be to meet yourself with love and
Mm-hmm.
encouragement? And the child analogy, like coming back to that, is so perfect because we're all forever children at heart. We're
Right.
all eternal students, forever learning and just like trying to figure out life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so perfect because you would never imagine doing that to a child. So why
No.
would we do it to ourselves?
Yeah, it's insane. And we do it all the time. Like, even me as a life coach, I catch myself still doing it all the time. Like, oh, I didn't work out today. And then you go on the list. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. I didn't get everything I needed done today. That makes this true about me. That makes this true about me. That makes this true about me. And we tell ourselves all of these stories. But like I said, if you looked at it from a point of self compassion, and we don't have to be complacent either. Like, you can still push yourself, you can still push boundaries, but you're not going to push those boundaries when you're shaming yourself in the first place.
No. Oh my gosh, no. It's so true. And I'm grateful that we are in the coaching space, because I think for a long time coaching had this era of just like sports coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to push you and they're going to hold you accountable and they're going to keep you disciplined and they're going to make sure that you do it. And maybe some people are still looking for that, but like when you're constantly shaming yourself as humans do naturally, is that what you really need? Is someone else coming in and doing that for you? Or do you need someone finally meeting you with grace and compassion and love and encouragement and like leading by example, like modeling what it looks like for you to lead yourself
Mm-hmm.
like that? And so I just anyone listening to this who hasn't had a figure like that in your life, whether it be like a friend, a partner, a coach, it is life changing to
Mm-hmm.
experience that from an outside source because it's a totally different way of operating and pursuing your goals.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you listening, if this conversation is triggering you in any way, if you are in the mindset of, no, that's not true, I have to work hard for what I want, I have to push myself, I have to, overexert myself, and that helps me, I want you to really ask yourself, is it genuinely helping you? Is that genuinely serving you? And maybe just for a little bit, test to have some compassion, test it out and see how it goes. Just give yourself, maybe take one day and say, you know what, no matter what happens today, I'm going to have compassion for the actions that I take, for the mistakes that I make, anything and everything that comes up. I'm going to look at it from the aspect of compassion rather than shame, and just see what happens, see how you feel.
That's such good advice. Such good advice. I'm also big on like just experiment with it. No
Mm-hmm.
attachment, just experiment with it. And I
Yeah.
love that you said, like, is it really working? Because sometimes we're scared to try something new when what we've been doing isn't working anyway. So it's like, okay, well, there's like, doesn't make sense to keep doing the same thing. And something that I wanted to just kind of like drop in there in addition to that is when we're assessing, like, is something working? My mind goes to, is it getting me a desired result? And am I enjoying it? Because if it's getting me a result but I'm not enjoying it, I don't see that as working
Right.
personally because
Yeah.
life is too short. Why are we walking around doing a bunch of things, filling our time with things that we don't enjoy doing? Why would we do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I love that you added that. I think that's a really good way to kind of decide whether something is working for you or not. And I have kind of a funny, I'm actually doing a challenge right now because of what you just talked about, that we don't see our own blind spots sometimes. And I work from home, and I'm doing a challenge right now to get ready every morning to work at my desk. And for the longest time, when I transitioned to working from home, I did not get ready. Like, I would wake up, brush my teeth, brush my hair, and then like be in my pajamas all day. Or like I'd just be in my undies with a t-shirt on, like sitting at my desk. Like, I really was not putting in the effort. And for the longest time, I believed that that was serving me, that that was in alignment, that that was, I really wanted to take advantage of working from home and being cozy and being comfy. And I recognized that I was starting to feel really lazy. I was starting to feel, that little tingle of feeling lazy and feeling not good about myself. Like I just was never inspired to make content, to post videos, to do anything because I had greasy hair and wasn't dressed. Like, not that that defines whether, you look good or not, but for me personally, it just didn't feel good anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a challenge. I'm going to get ready every morning, which has been this week. And I have gotten ready every morning for this week. And it has been crazy how much I feel better and how much I feel more inspired to create and how much I feel more inspired to do the work and motivate other people and motivate other women and show up online because I feel better about myself. And I, like I said, I didn't recognize that blind spot. I didn't recognize that I was doing something that wasn't serving me, but I thought that it was.
Hmm. That's so good. It's so good. Yes, we absolutely need like other eyes on our blind spots because we can't see them all.
Yeah.
We can't be everywhere at once, right? But I love that idea, and it reminds me a lot of the limitless leaders, my clients. We actually take up a good bit of space talking about like our self-expression and our clothes and our hair and our environments and stuff because it makes you feel good and confident, and that is enough because it changes the way that you move through the world. So like anything that makes you feel good, especially about yourself, that is so much more than enough reason to do it, to take the time, to spend the money, to make the effort, like give yourself full permission because it just ripples out into every part of life, just like you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had this belief for some reason that if I got ready and, made some sort of effort, then I wouldn't be comfortable. And comfortability is huge for me. Like in 2023, one of my outs was like restrictive or tight clothing because I was just so done with jeans. I was so over feeling like my belly was being squeezed and like I get really overstimulated too when I have clothes that are like hugging me weird or I'm adjusting constantly. And so I developed this belief that I couldn't have both, that I couldn't be comfortable and feel good about myself. And so it's been fun experimenting this week because like I'm comfy today. Like I'm wearing a comfy shirt, a cozy cardigan, I have leggings on, but I still feel good about myself. Like I put my little mushroom earrings in and I put some jewelry on and I took time to do my hair and I still feel good and comfortable. And like I said, I just developed this belief that I couldn't have both. And I think we do that a lot, right? We tell ourselves we can have either or, but it's not true. A lot of the times there is an in between and you can do both.
Yes, both and mindset and way of life. I freaking love that. That is such a beautiful way to put a bow on this conversation. This has been so good, so juicy. Libby, thank you so much for just sharing your story and your insights. I know that I'm sure like so much of it has landed on the other end. And to everyone listening, whatever did land with you, we would love to hear about it. I heard this analogy once that podcasting is like yelling into a cave. Like you don't really know what's landing and what's not, what people are taking away, but you see that people are listening. And we're not just here to speak into the cave, but we want to connect with you. So reach out, shoot us a DM, Libby, if people want to connect with you and chat more, where can they find you?
Yes, I always joke that even the other day I was recording a podcast and it was a solo one. I'm like, I'm literally just talking to my wall. Like, I'm just staring at my wall and talking to it. No one's there. But I am so excited that I got to speak today and talk to you guys. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Libby the Life Coach. So just Libby and then the Life Coach, all one word. You can find me on Instagram. I just barely launched my official one-on-one coaching packages that I've been beta testing, which I'm super duper excited about. And I'm offering a big promo for the first two ladies that sign up. So if you have been looking for a life coach, I would love to chat with you. You can go to my page and shoot me a message. Yeah, I think that's it.
Beautiful. I will put her Instagram and podcast into the show notes. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Libby,
Thank
thank you again for
you.
being here.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll see you guys next time.